Welcome back to EconoSphere, where we dive deep into the economics that shape our world. Today, we're tackling one of the most fascinating economic puzzles of our time: California's seemingly contradictory economic story. Picture this. You're reading headlines about mass exodus from the Golden State, skyrocketing costs, and economic doom. Yet simultaneously, California remains an absolute economic juggernaut, outpacing most countries worldwide in growth and innovation. So what's really happening here? Is California's economy genuinely cracking under pressure, or are we witnessing something far more complex? Let's start with the numbers that might surprise you. If California were its own country, it would rank as the fifth largest economy globally, sitting comfortably between Germany and India. That's not the profile of a failing economic system. The state generates more wealth per person than almost anywhere else on Earth, with only a handful of small, resource-rich nations managing to compete. But here's where things get interesting. Despite these impressive figures, California faces a unique set of challenges that could fundamentally reshape its economic landscape. Think of California as a high-performance sports car racing down the highway. It's incredibly fast and impressive, but it's also burning through fuel at an alarming rate, and there are some concerning warning lights flashing on the dashboard. The foundation of California's economic success rests on what economists call industrial clustering. Imagine a bustling marketplace where everyone speaks the same language and understands the same business. Silicon Valley didn't become the global tech capital by accident. When brilliant engineers, visionary entrepreneurs, and deep-pocketed investors all congregate in the same area, magic happens. Startups can walk down the street to pitch investors, established companies can poach talent from competitors over coffee, and entire supply chains develop organically within a few square miles. This phenomenon extends far beyond technology. Hollywood operates on the same principle. Actors, directors, producers, studio executives, and specialized crews all cluster together, creating an ecosystem where creativity and commerce intertwine seamlessly. It's like a perfectly orchestrated symphony where every musician knows their part and can improvise together effortlessly. But here's the critical part that many people miss. This clustering effect can work in reverse. When key players start leaving, it doesn't just create gaps, it can trigger a cascade effect. Think of it like a Jenga tower. Remove a few strategic pieces, and the whole structure becomes unstable. Recent trends suggest this reverse migration might be gaining momentum. For the past several years, California has experienced net outmigration, meaning more people leave than arrive from other states. Now, this isn't necessarily catastrophic. Many successful regions experience population churn. What matters is who's leaving and who's staying. The housing crisis sits at the heart of many of California's challenges. Imagine trying to run a business where your employees spend 60 to 70% of their income just on rent. That's the reality for many Californians today. Housing costs have spiraled so far beyond reasonable levels that even high-earning professionals find themselves struggling to build wealth or start families. This creates a particularly insidious problem. When housing becomes unaffordable for anyone except the ultra-wealthy, entire communities begin to fracture. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, restaurant workers, all the people who make a community function, get priced out. The result is a hollowing effect where only the extreme top and bottom of the economic spectrum remain, with virtually no middle class in between. The tax structure adds another layer of complexity. California employs what's called a progressive tax system, which means higher earners pay significantly more than those with modest incomes. In theory, this makes sense. Those who benefit most from society's infrastructure should contribute proportionally. However, this approach creates an unusual vulnerability. Think of California's budget like a three-legged stool where one leg is dramatically longer than the others. That long leg represents the tax revenue from high earners. When times are good and tech companies are thriving, that leg supports tremendous weight. But when markets fluctuate or high earners decide to relocate, the entire structure becomes wobbly. The pandemic fundamentally altered this dynamic. Suddenly, that Google engineer earning $300,000 annually realized they could work remotely from Austin, Denver, or Miami while paying significantly less in both taxes and living expenses. For many professionals, leaving California became a rational economic decision rather than an emotional one. This shift reveals a deeper issue with California's economic model. Unlike traditional manufacturing centers that required physical proximity to ports, raw materials, or transportation networks, much of California's modern economy is theoretically location independent. A software engineer can write code anywhere with reliable internet. A venture capitalist can evaluate investment opportunities via video conference. A creative professional can collaborate on projects through cloud-based platforms. However, dismissing the importance of physical proximity entirely would be premature. Despite technological advances, human connections, spontaneous collaborations, and cultural ecosystems still matter enormously. The question becomes, how much do they matter, and at what cost? Consider the entertainment industry. While streaming platforms have globalized content distribution, the creative heart of Hollywood remains remarkably localized. Major productions still gravitate toward Los Angeles, not just for the infrastructure, but for the intangible network effects that emerge when creative professionals share the same coffee shops, attend the same industry events, and bump into each other at their kids' school picnics. Similarly, Silicon Valley's venture capital ecosystem relies heavily on relationships, trust, and informal information networks that develop through face-to-face interactions. A casual conversation at a Stanford alumni event might lead to a $100 million investment. These serendipitous encounters are difficult to replicate virtually. Yet this advantage comes with an expiration date. As costs continue rising and alternatives become more attractive, younger professionals increasingly question whether the California premium is worth paying. A talented engineer starting their career might choose to build their initial experience in Austin or Seattle, planning to move to Silicon Valley only if absolutely necessary for their next career leap. The environmental challenges add urgency to these concerns. California's wildfire seasons have become longer, more intense, and more destructive. Entire neighborhoods evacuate regularly, businesses shut down due to smoke and power outages, and insurance companies increasingly refuse to cover properties in high-risk areas. Imagine trying to run a manufacturing operation when you might need to shut down for weeks each year due to environmental emergencies. Picture starting a family when you're not certain whether your children's schools will remain open during fire season. These aren't abstract policy discussions, they're real disruptions affecting daily life and business operations. The insurance crisis deserves particular attention because it illustrates how environmental risks translate into economic pressures. When insurance companies refuse to cover properties, or when coverage becomes prohibitively expensive, it creates a cascading effect throughout the housing market. Homeowners can't sell easily, buyers can't get mortgages, and property values become divorced from traditional market fundamentals. California's agricultural sector faces parallel challenges. The state produces an extraordinary variety of high-value crops, from almonds and wine grapes to strawberries and avocados. This agricultural diversity requires sophisticated water management, favorable climate conditions, and specialized expertise. Climate change threatens all three foundations simultaneously. Water scarcity has become a persistent concern, forcing farmers to make increasingly difficult decisions about which crops to maintain and which to abandon. Some agricultural regions are exploring dramatic shifts toward drought-resistant crops or entirely different economic models. These transitions take decades to implement successfully and often require completely retooling existing infrastructure and expertise. The global trade environment presents additional complications. California's economy depends heavily on international connections, both for exports and imports. The state's ports handle enormous volumes of goods flowing between Asia and North America, while California companies export everything from entertainment content to agricultural products to cutting-edge technology. Trade tensions create uncertainty that reverberates throughout these interconnected systems. When tariffs make California almonds more expensive in Chinese markets, it doesn't just affect farmers. It impacts transportation companies, processing facilities, financial institutions, and countless supporting businesses throughout the supply chain. Similarly, restrictions on technology exports can undermine Silicon Valley's global reach. If American social media platforms, smartphone manufacturers, or cloud computing services face barriers in international markets, it reduces their growth potential and, ultimately, their need for California-based employees. The immigration dimension adds another critical variable. California's economy has historically benefited enormously from international talent attraction. Universities like Stanford, UC Berkeley, and Caltech draw brilliant students from around the world, many of whom stay to launch companies or join existing businesses. This brain drain from other countries to California has been a massive competitive advantage. Changes in immigration policy, visa processing, or international perceptions of the United States could significantly impact this talent pipeline. If fewer international students choose American universities, or if visa restrictions make it difficult for graduates to remain in the country, California loses a crucial source of innovation and entrepreneurship. The demographic trends within California also tell an important story. The state has attracted young, ambitious professionals for decades, creating a dynamic workforce willing to take risks and work exceptionally long hours. However, many of these individuals eventually face a choice: start families and build long-term roots in an expensive, challenging environment, or relocate to places where their money goes further and life feels more manageable. This creates what economists call a demographic hourglass. California attracts people in their 20s and early 30s but often loses them in their mid-30s to 40s when life priorities shift toward family stability and wealth building. The result is a workforce that skews young and transient, which brings energy and innovation but can also lack institutional memory and long-term community investment. California's political environment reflects these economic tensions. Residents face genuinely difficult trade-offs between competing priorities. Environmental protection often conflicts with development and job creation. Progressive taxation supports public services but may discourage business investment. Zoning regulations preserve neighborhood character but exacerbate housing shortages. These aren't simple problems with obvious solutions. They're complex, interconnected challenges that require sustained political will and broad social cooperation to address effectively. Unfortunately, the transient nature of California's population sometimes works against the long-term thinking necessary for systemic solutions. Despite these substantial challenges, predicting California's economic collapse would be premature and likely incorrect. The state retains enormous advantages that won't disappear overnight. Its universities remain world-class research institutions. Its venture capital networks still deploy more money than anywhere else globally. Its entertainment industry continues generating cultural content that shapes global trends. Its agricultural sector produces unique, high-value products that can't easily be replicated elsewhere. Moreover, many of California's problems aren't unique, they're simply more visible due to the state's prominence and media attention. Housing affordability challenges affect cities throughout the United States. Infrastructure strain impacts growing metropolitan areas everywhere. Climate change threatens countless regions worldwide. California's struggles often represent the leading edge of challenges that other places will face eventually. The question isn't whether California will maintain its economic significance, but rather how it will adapt to changing circumstances. Will the state find ways to address housing costs while preserving environmental quality? Can it maintain its innovation ecosystem while accommodating diverse income levels? Will it successfully navigate international trade tensions and immigration policy changes? History suggests that successful economic regions demonstrate remarkable resilience and adaptability. Silicon Valley itself emerged from the defense industry's transformation after World War II, evolved through the semiconductor revolution, adapted to the personal computer era, and reinvented itself during the internet boom. Each transition brought predictions of decline, yet the region consistently found new sources of competitive advantage. The entertainment industry has similarly weathered numerous technological disruptions, from television challenging movie theaters to streaming services undermining traditional broadcast models. Rather than being destroyed by these changes, Hollywood has often emerged stronger by embracing new distribution channels and content formats. California's agricultural sector has continuously evolved in response to changing market conditions, water availability, and environmental regulations. Farmers have adopted more efficient irrigation systems, developed new crop varieties, and explored innovative growing techniques. This adaptability has allowed the state to maintain its agricultural leadership despite ongoing challenges. The current moment may represent another inflection point requiring similar adaptability. Remote work technologies could reduce the premium on physical proximity, but they might also enable new forms of collaboration that we haven't yet imagined. Climate challenges create risks but also drive innovation in clean technology, renewable energy, and environmental management. Housing costs create problems but also incentivize creative solutions in construction, urban planning, and alternative ownership models. Looking forward, California's economic future likely depends on its ability to preserve the elements that create genuine competitive advantages while addressing the inefficiencies and inequities that drive people away. This means tackling housing production seriously, not just talking about it. It means creating tax policies that are both progressive and practical. It means building infrastructure that can handle both growth and environmental challenges. Most importantly, it means recognizing that economic dynamism requires inclusive growth. When only a narrow slice of society can afford to participate in an economy's success, that economy becomes fragile and politically unstable. California's long-term prosperity depends on ensuring that teachers, firefighters, small business owners, and young families can afford to live and thrive alongside tech executives and entertainment moguls. The stakes extend beyond California itself. As one of the world's largest and most innovative economies, California's trajectory influences global trends in technology development, environmental policy, and social organization. Other regions watch California's experiments with everything from climate regulation to housing policy to taxation models. Success in addressing these challenges could provide blueprints for other high-cost, high-growth regions worldwide. Failure might serve as a cautionary tale about the limits of economic inequality and environmental degradation. Either way, California's economic evolution will likely influence how we think about sustainable prosperity in the 21st century. So, is California's economy broken? The answer is both more complex and more hopeful than simple headlines suggest. California faces real challenges that require urgent attention and creative solutions. But the state also retains fundamental strengths that, if properly leveraged, could drive continued prosperity for decades to come. The key insight is that economic systems are not static, they either evolve or decline. California's future depends on its willingness to embrace necessary changes while preserving the innovative spirit and inclusive values that made it successful in the first place. Thanks for joining us on EconoSphere today. What do you think about California's economic challenges? Are you optimistic about the state's ability to adapt and thrive, or do you see fundamental problems that might be difficult to solve? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the economic forces shaping our world. Until next time, keep thinking economically.